Welcome to Happy Times and Places, a positively inclined Doctor Who episode commentary in which I, Toby Hadoke, get a friend to choose a Doctor Who story for me to watch, and they're also going to pick their favourite things about it, and I have to guess what those favourite things are. Well, hello. I'm in a funny old mood because it's my birthday. It's the end of my birthday. Not when you listen to this. So don't send me, if you were so inclined, and I'm not suggesting you would have been, to send me congratulations, because the chances are, the way my release schedule is going, this will be released closer to my next birthday, number 48, than to the one I'm currently on the fag end of. But appropriately this week, because what I do is I send out missives to friends and ask them to choose a story, and they come back with a story, so I strike that off the list, and then in their own time they send me their videos or audios telling me what they love about the particular story they've chosen. And my special guest this week sent me his thoughts on this story a couple of days ago, and I know about this story because it is my birth story, so I know that it was broadcast 47 years ago, because it's my 47th birthday. As I speak, I was born between episodes 3 and 4, so that seemed like too good an opportunity to miss. I was going to miss it, but I find myself at the back end of my birthday feeling a little melancholy because, I don't know, as a kid, the birthday was the thing to really look forward to, and of course, because it comes hot on the heels of Christmas and New Year, once the birthday's over, that's pretty much it now for me till Christmas. But of course, a birthday, the feeling as a kid is very exciting. And as I get to 47, I still sort of see it as this sort of little haven where it's my day and everything's perfect. But of course, I'm 47, so I had to tidy the corner, I had to do a bit of this and a bit of that, and my other half had things that she was doing, and I found myself going, oh, is this... I had to walk the dog because it's a bit cold outside, and so I'm going, it's not quite what birthdays were. Of course they're not. 47. Neither of my kids have come over. They only live around the corner, 2 minutes away. There's no estrangement there or anything like that. They just couldn't be bothered to come over. So I'm feeling a little melancholy, and I don't want to go to bed on my birthday with that feeling of, I don't know what it is. It's middle-aged. It's middle-aged. It's not middle-aged spread, is it? That's my tummy. Middle-aged, what is it? Midlife crisis. That's all I'm experiencing. I never thought I'd be 47. I still don't think I'm 47. I still look through the eyes of the 16-year-old me. I still know as little. I'm still lacking in all the confidences I thought you got when you became a grown-up. None of that changes. It's just that the eyes... Well, it's you still have all of the old hang-ups, except you navigate them slightly in a slightly creakier fashion. And every time you get knocked down, it hurts a bit more when you get up. So, what do I do when life plays with one's emotions, especially emotions that are tied to childhood? Because, of course, birthdays are a thing that I think do always put us in mind of childhood, because that's when birthdays were great, or they were supposed to be great, or that they were looked forward to. They were anyway. So, what do? I turn to Doctor Who. And why not turn to my birth story on the occasion of my birth, even though it's 20 past 2 in the morning. I'm making this birthday last as long as possible. And so I'm going to get my special guest to... I've literally just downloaded this, so I don't know if he introduces himself. Don't know what he says. The form is, what I tell them to do is to introduce themselves and to say a little bit about why they've chosen the story. So let's see if he does that, and if not, I'll fill in the blanks after his introduction.
Hello, Toby. Thanks very much for asking me to do this. It should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. My name's Tom Salinsky, and I am a writer and a podcaster and a corporate coach. And your project made me think of a question that I've pondered before. If I had a fan of the new series who'd never seen any Doctor Who from pre-2005, who asked me, Tom, I'd like to get into classic Doctor Who, where should I start? What show would I show them? What episode would I pick? Now, it's tempting to leap straight for one of the all-time fan favourite classics for your Genesis of the Daleks or your Talons of Weng Chiang, but are we really going to start with a six-parter? All right, then what about Caves of Androzani or City of Death? And they're great, but they're very atypical of the show at that time, or at any time, really. So, all right, well, clearly we're not going to go for anything black and white. Let's not run before we can walk. What about a kind of good, solid Tom Baker four-parter? Robots of Death, that would be good, or maybe Planet of Evil, something like that. It'd be nice if there was some extra hook, you know, if there was some classic monster or something like that that this fan was already familiar with that would kind of draw them in. But let's be clear, I'm not going to show them Revenge of the Cybermen, and I'm not going to show them Destiny of the Daleks. So what about a master story? What about Terror of the Autons? That would be good. It's the first master story. It's the Autons, which I'll be familiar with from Rose, but yeah, see that CGI troll doll teddy bear thing does not look great, and that's always the risk. You'll show them something and it will have all the worst qualities of the mythical Doctor Who that we got made fun of in the playground about. So something which was a bit more on solid ground. The Demons, that's pretty good. It's 5 episodes, it's not 4. And, you know, even after it's been restored, the picture quality is not great. What about The Time Warrior? Because you see, The Time Warrior's got a lot of stuff on film. It's a lot of historical settings, which look great because the BBC costume department could do that easily. It's got a classic monster, the Sontarans, never better. It's the first Sontaran story, and it's the first Sarah Jane Smith story. So we get to see the Doctor through somebody else's eyes. I reckon that The Time Warrior is the perfect old Who episode to show to a new Who fan. And that's why I've chosen it. Also happens to be one of my favourites. So none of the things I've said are going to be one of my 4 or 5 favourite things. I haven't decided what those are yet. I haven't watched the show yet. I'm going to sit down and do that now. So sit back, enjoy, relax with me as we watch The Time Warrior.
Oh, well, thanks to Tom, and a typically eloquent introduction. I say I ask friends. I mean, I've met Tom once, or well, during one period of time, at Edinburgh Fringe. But it's slightly more complicated than that. He's a very, very interesting guy and a very smart guy. Maybe I will save my connection with Tom to a lull in the story, because I sometimes kick myself for talking too much before the story starts, and then I spend my time going, oh, that's a nice ladder, or, you know, the big bugbear when I go, yeah, what's interesting is, which I think I've pointed out before, is currently in my head I have nothing interesting to say at all, and I'm just buying myself some time. Sure, you're working, Toby. So look, it's Tom who will, I know, come up with some interesting things. He was the second person, by the way, in the space of a week to ask. He was the first of 2 to ask for The Time Warrior. My good friend Dominic Woodward, who's a comedian. I know this is his favourite story. And he went, can I do The Time Warrior? I was like, it's been claimed literally about 5 days ago. So you wait for The Time Warrior to come along, and 2 come along at once. So Dom's doing a different story. But that's for another time. Now, I want you to get ready to play The Time Warrior in 3, 2, 1. And I think this was my first introduction to this title sequence, which is quite busy. I like it because I like the streaks of light, and then I was shocked at how reminiscent it is of Tom Baker's, because Tom Baker's Time Tunnel was my intro to this, and then when I started collecting Pertwees, I got the earlier ones, and I definitely know, because I like the book of this was the first season 11 story that I got. It was the one I fancied, really, because I remember enjoying the book. The book cover has surely got to be a contender for the best Target book cover. The rendition of Lynx, I'm going to commit now. Is it Jeff Cummins that did it? Or is it Steve Kite? Oh, cue subtitle. It's an excellent cover. This is now Sheila Fay, who plays Meg. She was in a I remember when I was getting this, she was in a sitcom called Help that nobody remembers that had Stephen McGann in it, and it's about three Liverpudlian scallywags, and she was the other regular. She had a cafe, so I was quite Sheila Fay from Help, and now of course it's Meg from The Time Warrior was in a sitcom nobody remembers, but she was married to Ken Jones from Porridge. And I'm sure I will say a lot about David Dacre and John J. Carney as Irongron and Bloodaxe. I love the pair of them. It's funny because when I read the book, Bloodaxe seemed very much like, second fiddle sidekick. They didn't come across to me when I read the book as classic Robert Holmesian double act. For the uninitiated, Robert Holmes, the writer of this, is sort of quite famous for telling his stories with characters, Garen and Unstoff and even Oscar and Anita, sort of double acts, characters who, of course, Jago and Lightfoot, characters who sort of tell the story by bouncing off each other amusingly and through their relationship. But I never had Irongron as Bloodaxe down as that in the book. It just seemed to me that Bloodaxe was sort of, maybe because I like florid gentlemen like Jago and Lightfoot, they're more my sort of characters on the page maybe. But Bloodaxe just seemed to me like, not very interesting bandit type, second fiddle bandit. But actually in this, they are very much a double act. He has real trouble with his horse here, John J. Carney. And I love the fact the Sontaran spaceship has endured. It's just a golf ball, but it's brilliant. It's simple and it's cleverly rendered. And of course, this is a period drama, which the BBC does so well. So they've got all these costumes kicking about. So, there's absolutely, no fault can be picked in any of this stuff. And even the beards are good, which isn't always a given. The beards and I assume the wigs. And I mean, I could. I love Irongron's bravado. I love Lynx's costume. And this is all, beautiful. There's lots of film, as Tom says, which always, I think at the start of the season makes you feel, but look at the attention to detail here. So, okay, he's got a translation device. He's an alien. He's humanoid. Oh, so it's not that exciting. He's a humanoid guy with a helmet on. He looks just a bit like a warrior. Oh, hang on. He's got a translation device. Hang on. There's a suggestion of sort of brown leathery skin beneath that mask. Hang on. He's got a nifty flag. I mean, in some stories, this nifty flag, I adore that. And the fact that he goes, I've just, the first thing I'm going to do when I land on this primitive world is I am going to claim it for my warlike people. And I love the little salute-y business. It's not a salute, but the sort of chest-thumping thing that he does. I used to when I used to play as Sontarans as a kid, I used to sort of, I am Field Major Stein. He never actually did that, but I think I was influenced by the sort of chesty, salute-y thing that he did. So I'd thump my chest quite hard. In order to make myself feel like a hard Sontaran officer, although poor old Kevin Lindsay had a heart condition, so I was unconsciously going to probably killed him. I think, and I love the way he moves. I love the fact that his costume is, it fits him snugly. All too often, well, as the show got later on, sometimes the costumes didn't quite sort of fit as snugly, and Monster's sort of armour or whatever, or space gear was sort of slightly wrinkled, and that's what we do so well now with those sort of ripply chested, whatever they're made of. There's the stuff that you get on Monsters now where people they have body casts and they fit very snugly, and I think we've greatly improved that sort of thing. But this is this definitely anticipates that. That's definitely what they're trying to do here, and largely succeeds. I mean, it does succeed. I mean, I think for the time this is as sleek and snug and tight-fitting. And because Irongron in this company is a wily fellow, he in the kingdom of the blind, he is the one-eyed man. But I love the fact that sort of Lynx just sort of largely ignores, but without being, weakling, earthling, but he just doesn't rise to any of it. And I think their relationship is rather terrific. It's a very grubby mattress that the cream of the scientific community are being housed in. Now, of course, this is because we think of this as the start of season 11, which it is, but of course it's in the production block of season 10. So in my mind, I always lump it in with what follows, and you think of Sarah Jane starting in a sort of block, but no, she starts in a one-off for her, because this is broadcast at the end of the year, but is I think filmed in about May. So there's a big gap between recording and transmission. But I always rather like it when a unit are sort of called on to solve a thing, and so what they do is they sort of bung everybody so scientists have gone missing. Units got to find out why they've got missing, so they've housed them all together in a place with Doctor Who. But of course, Nicholas Courtney's only in this one episode, then he's in Dinosaurs, isn't he? And then we don't see him until Planet of the Spiders. So, yeah, it's very much not part of the furniture anymore, and yet they're sort of part of the show's DNA still, and will continue to be for a little bit before they sort of fade away. But that sort of content, I sort of, you never think of this period as the show as one with continuity, because I was brought up with the 80s, where continuity became a marvellous thing and then a really dirty word. But in the 60s, where it was very much lots of different places, different genres, different historicals to science fiction. The Monk came back, but and then the Brigadier came back after Web of Fear as Colonel, let's be sure it's Brigadier. But then when you hit the 70s, you suddenly have loads of regular characters who appear for the next few years, and then that load of continuity vanishes, and then you get the 80s where they sort of just keep plucking from the show's past, and it's our eternal conundrum as fans, isn't it? We love nods to things that we know, but we get really annoyed if the show disappears up its own fundament. And I think the 70s do it pretty well. The Unit era does it pretty well, because the characters are there for continuity. We don't have to know too much about them. We don't. There are no big emotional journeys that mean that we have to know what the Brigadier's been through to reference his emotional state or something like that. He does exactly what he says on the tin. I love Professor Rubish. I love Elizabeth Sladen. I had a Doctor Who magazine which had the Doctor Who archives of the Time Warrior, and there's a picture of Elizabeth Sladen in her sort of Robin Hood kind of gear, and it was a big picture of that accompanying the archives, and she's absolutely beautiful in it, and I vowed then to marry her. And like many of my ambitions, I singularly felt I'd never even met Elizabeth Sladen. I did get a signed photograph of her through the post, signed Doctor Who 5 Doctors publicity postcard, but I never had the pleasure. I love her. I think she's fabulous. It was funny because my brothers and sisters always talked of Sarah as the one who screamed. Sarah screamed all the time. They said, but actually she doesn't. And so I think I grew up with her as thinking of her as I slightly dismissed her, because I think for my brothers and sisters she was part of the furniture for them, so they were a bit dismissive of her because they'd sort of grown up. They were of the age when they were watching. And I remember as I gradually collected the older episodes, just going, she's really good. And again, my instinct is to not like not my favourite is not to be everybody else's favourite, because I it's pathetic. You sort of pride yourself and go, well, yeah, everybody else likes the White Album. I like the Beatles 2, The Revenge. I don't know what they're called. To go, I'm not the same as the crowd. I hate myself for that. So I think I was inclined to go, yeah, well, everyone likes Sarah Jane. She's everyone's favourite. But then you just go, oh no, well, because there's a really good reason. I watched Pyramids of Mars earlier today for fun. It's my birthday present to myself. With Tom Baker, don't put a foot wrong. Dot Cotton and Alan and Cat Weasel's husband. Well, Alan Rowe here as Edward of Wessex, fine servant to Doctor Who. It was also Geoffrey Belvin's partner. I will talk about those two as well. I mean, they're the sort of pretty much bottom of the credits characters, played by two estimable character actors, both with fine stories to tell. Gordon Pitt, on the other hand, this guy I don't know much about at all. I know he's dead, sadly, and died many years ago, 85 I think. And he's an extra in The Wheel in Space. But apart from that, I'm afraid I don't know an awful lot about him. I'm sorry, Gordon Pitt, and you don't get an awful lot to do here. Although your character is referred to later to have died in the cells, so it's you don't even get an on-screen death either. You just get sort of referred to in passing. So I'm sorry I don't know much about you, Gordon Pitt. I hope you're happy. Yeah, so Alan Rowe, he has been already in Doctor Who as Dr. Evans in the Moonbase. He comes back as Skinsale in Horror of Fang Rock, one of the great... I watched that over Christmas. I can't talk about the stories. I've been watching Doctor... Do you know what? Over Christmas I've been watching Doctor Who for pleasure, because I've researched it for the podcasts, or when I do these I talk all the way through it. And it was an utter joy. I did Horror of Fang Rock, Pyramids of Mars, Resurrection of the Daleks over the past week or so, and just watched them. And I loved every minute of all of them. I mean, I'm not blind to their faults, and I won't be blind to the faults of this, but I don't think this has got many faults. Yes, I should do a confession. I really like this story. This is one of my 10 out of 10s. I don't think there's much wrong with it at all, and what there is wrong with it, I forgive. Even though it's not a big hitter, it's a funny script. I like all the characters. David Dacre knows exactly what he's doing. If I've got an axe, I'll hit the table with it. If I've got a chicken bone, I'll throw it at somebody. I love David Dacre. He's not one to be interviewed, interestingly. I know Marcia Wheeler, who was the production manager or AFM production assistant on this. I think she'd said she'd suggested him for the part, and I think she still knows him. And says, lovely chap, but yeah, he's just one of those people who's not interested in being interviewed. Shame, because he became very well known. I mean, he's always been on telly. Oh, he was in Moonfleet. We watched a thing at school. I knew him before I knew he was in Doctor Who, because he was in Moonfleet with Adam Godley, who's the voice of the monkey and the chimpanzee in the Umbrella Academy. I only know that because we're not allowed to watch the Umbrella Academy, because the minute the chimpanzee spoke, one and a half went, we're not watching this. I don't do talking animals. She's got a thing about talking animals. So I'm going to leave pictures of Frobisher around the bedroom, scare her away. And we watched Moonfleet at school after games or whatever, because the BBC were doing Moonfleet, not the Smuggler's Bay one from the 60s. I'm not that old. And it was Adam Godley and David Dacre. So that's where I first saw David Dacre, and then I was pleased to see he'd been in Doctor Who. And of course, he's Rig in Nightmare of Eden. So what I didn't realise when we watched Moonfleet was that I'd actually seen him in Doctor Who. I love Professor Rubish as well. Donald Pelmier. Now, he was definitely suggested by Marcia Wheeler, and he's not done a massive amount of telly, and he's not I'm sure he wasn't with one of the big agents, but he seizes his opportunity here. Still going strong in his early 90s. I've been to his house, and we had lovely coffee and biscuits. And he's actually slightly northern, I think. So he's not doing his own voice. He's not using his own voice here. But it's interesting because often those characters are played by actors that you then see pop up in loads of stuff. And he's done bits and bobs, and he's sustained a career, but I wouldn't say he's had the same sort of career as a lot of the character actors, like the John Ringhams and the Alan Rose and people like that, who crop up playing good parts in Doctor Who. He is in the Day of the Triffids, though, the Ken Hannon one, the BBC one that's just been released in an abominable form on Blu-ray with the wrong font and treatment of it. Let's not get into that. Yes, I think Rubish is rather fun, and I liked him in the book, and I like his performance in this. And it's interesting it's not interesting. I think it's interesting because the credits for episode 1 and 4 go Lynx, Rubish, Irongron, Bloodaxe, and they're double. They're two people per slide. And then for the middle episodes, Rubish gets chucked right to the end, pretty much, and it goes Lynx, Irongron, Bloodaxe, and they get single captions. So they obviously didn't quite know whether he was one of the main supporting characters, and I think probably because he hadn't done a lot. There's that with the billings as well. So he flits to and fro across the credits. But anybody that cares about that sort of thing, and actually I'm watching the DVD, so the credits will make me cross because when they rebuilt them, they forgot to put Bloodaxe and Irongron and Bloodaxe's caption in, and I think because on the broadcast version they'd forgotten to put them in, or something had gone wrong, so that slide was inserted quite late and is therefore a bit shorter than it should be. So I think then when they rebuilt them, that caused some sort of glitch, which meant that it didn't go in. Nobody cares about that except me. There's nobody in the world that cares about that except me, and me, I care far too much. We haven't even talked about Doctor Who, John Pertwee. This is where, as the late, much missed Terence Dix would say, his hair is getting very bouffant. I love Pertwee having these sorts of gadgets. There's just something about that sort of way that he sleeps in the chair. I buy that John Pertwee can sleep in a chair with his feet up, and get quite a decent sleep. Rubish has gone and he's left his glasses, which is going to be very important. Yep, Blind is back without his glasses. Because of course Elizabeth Sladen wasn't originally cast as... one of those soldiers is Steve Ismay, who's a lovely fella, and he's the guy I always email when I want to find out about an extra from Doctor Who. Go, do you remember Brian Gilmore? I go, oh yeah, lovely bloke, didn't take himself too seriously, never came for a pint though. I love Steve. He's a proper Cockney character, and always sends a lovely email back. And does done loads and loads of Doctor Who's and loads of other things. So yes, Elizabeth Sladen was not originally cast, and for years it was a mystery because Barry Letts was too much of a gentleman to say, well, we cast person X, and then and the suggestion seems to be that John Pertwee didn't sort of feel that the chemistry clicked, and it's public knowledge now. There's an actress called April Walker who is in the Fawlty Towers episode. She's a great comedy. Worked a lot with a lot of comedians on telly at the time. So it would be interesting to have seen what April Walker's take on the companion would have been, but she didn't make it past the Pertwee scrutiny, having been cast. But interesting because of the way the BBC works, she was contracted to be paid for the season, but because she got other work at the BBC that paid a sort of equivalent amount, she didn't get. She did get paid, but she had to do another job instead. Whereas I'm sure now you'd go, if you contract me for a job and I end up not doing it because you've decided something, you still have to pay me. And then if I get another job, I have to get paid for doing that other job. But the BBC worked in different ways those days. But it was for years. It was a mystery, and it was the mighty David Brunt, who is another person I've never met, but There's a network of people that you can email and ask questions, and sometimes people ask me questions, and sometimes I help. I can help. I always try. Sometimes the reason I don't help is if I can't. And David found in the production file for Invasion of the Dinosaurs a slip of paper giving away that it was April Walker. But for years it was a mystery. It was only when the DVD of Dinosaurs, I think, came out that was revealed. Good work, David. It's lovely how there are sort of things we, up until relatively recently, didn't know. And there are probably things we will, that we currently don't know. There are known knowns and there are known unknowns. So the things we don't know that one day we might know. But that's why the archaeology of being a fan of this stuff that has such a rich history is so fascinating. This is Peckforton Castle, which is not far from here. Not much Doctor Who's been done up north. I'm in Manchester. And so all of the extras in Iron Gone and Blood. I'll talk about Jeremy Bullock as Hal the Archer, who's entered here. All the extras in Blood Axe and Iron Grone's Castle are locally based actors. They recruited the film actors from up north, so a lot of them are from Manchester or Liverpool or Leeds, and some of them quite experienced, and some of them, as we'll discover in episode 3, and I see him there, Steve Brunswick, not quite so experienced, and when he opens his mouth in episode 3, you'll see the ugly proof of that, and I've got an amusing story to go with that as well. But he gets a credit in episode 3 because he gets given a line. But we'll talk about that when we come to it. But Peckforton Castle, I went to a wedding there last year. God, was it 2020? Oh, it was like another world because it was when we were allowed to sit next to people and lick their faces and spit in their mouths and everything. And I sat next to Norna from Frontios, who was a guest at the wedding, but I didn't lick her face or spit in her mouth. And I was placed next to her because my friend's kind. What a cliffhanger. What a mask. It's a simple cliffhanger. The monster takes his helmet off to reveal that he's a monster. We knew he was a monster. We could see he'd got leathery skin underneath. I suspect there were photos of him in the paper. There's nothing in that is a surprise at all. Or worthy of... Eleanor, Edward and Hal get a three caption. Gosh, yeah, it's a real hodgepodge, this first set of credits, especially on the DVD where one slide is missing. They'll alter that for the Blu-ray, but there is nothing in that cliffhanger on paper, say, that when you'd read it in say Doctor Who magazine, in the Doctor Who archives, the Linx removes his helmet and reveals his face beneath or whatever, that would make you go in any way, well, that's a remarkable cliffhanger. In execution, it's one of the... I just think it's perfect because it's very nicely shot. Yeah, Alan Bromley, the director, we'll talk about him. And that's reminded me of something. I'll tell you in episode 2. It's a bit embarrassing. For me, not for anybody else. But that cliffhanger, I'll explain this cliffhanger, it kills me. The way it's shot, I think the fact that it's on film, but it's the turn, it's the sheer it's the, there's a mask underneath the mask, or there's something underneath the something. I don't know why that peeling of that layer is witty, but it sort of is you think, he looks like a metalhead monster guy. But there's something underneath, and we're seeing what's underneath. What is underneath is one of the best monster designs in the history of the show. The fact that you've got the articulated eyes, the actor's eyes underneath, means that you've already got a performance going on. The fact that Kevin Lindsay then decides to stick his tongue out and make Links and the Sontarans therefore sticky, outy, tonguey things, which is just a very simple way of being a bit alien, that doesn't look pony, it doesn't look silly, it's not too avant-garde, it's not too out there, it's just a little touch that is completely believable. It's the fact that Links has got little bits of facial hair. people don't think to give sort of monsters facial. Sometimes monsters, that's what they are. They're a hairy thing, but a sort of leather skin thing with a bit of facial hair. I just think it's that attention to detail, the concept, the design, the execution. I love that cliffhanger, and yet it is nothing except for the fact that as it is more than a sum of its parts, or because of each of the little parts that everybody brings to it. It's absolutely terrific. So I might choose that, or do I just choose Links as a whole? No, I think I'm going to choose that. Oh, how do I? Because what's Tom going to do? I've got to think what Tom's going to choose, but he might choose something good. I'm going to choose the cliffhanger, with the caveat that I might make it include Links as a whole later in retrospect, depending on how the rest of this goes, because I think Kevin Lindsay's performance, combined with that costume, combined with that mask, combined with the sheer impact the Sontarans make as a one-off monster, and just one of them, that they've become part of the show's history, who I never think have been quite as good as they are here. And that's no disrespect to Strax and Dan Starkey, who I love, but they are a slightly different iteration. And I know Dan's very good at, and I know he wanted to do more with the voice when he first came in. I've done an interview with him where he's talked about this and the tongue and stuff, and the director told him not to. And I think Strax is absolutely brilliant, and I love Strax. But I see Strax as Strax. I don't. I think he gets his own subsection, whereas the Sontarans and Strax is of course a benign character in a sense. He becomes a good guy, and he's almost a sort of sidekick of the Doctor. Whereas when looking at the Sontarans as a race and their depiction in the series as a threat, as a nemesis, I don't think they've been better than here. And I think one of the really interesting things about Classic Who... Well, no, I will talk about that, because the episode isn't playing, and I will get to a point halfway through episode 3 where I'll run out of things to say. No, you won't, Toby. Yes, I will. You never stop talking. I actually do. But just not when I should. Right. The cliffhanger to episode 1 is what I'm choosing. Let's see what Tom Salinsky has chosen as his favourite thing of episode 1 of The Time Warrior.
Well, if anything, episode 1 was even better than I remembered it. It goes like the clappers, doesn't it? It can't be more than 5 minutes from the titles fading away to seeing all of those modern-day scientists in Angron's castle. It's so efficient. Now, favourite things. I'm quite tempted to pick that flag that Links plants in the ground with the two bits that just pop out like that. It's a beautiful piece of on-location special effects work, and I'm quite tempted to pick the fact that this is the first instance of a season arc phrase, as Metabelius 3 is name-checked just before the end, but I think it has to be the reveal of Links, the perfectly domed head that fits precisely underneath the helmet. It's a wonderful visual gag. It's what the Sontarans are probably still best known for, and it just works beautifully. What a wonderful mask, and what a fantastic performance from Kevin Lindsay.
Yes! Yes! Oh, go on. Could this be the one where I guess as more than I don't? And I even nearly went for the one he nearly went for, didn't I? I said I like the flag. He liked the flag. And what I love is that Tom, I don't know how others have done it, but Tom is actually watching. I could hear the title music behind him. He's watching and then talking to camera. So he's sort of doing what I'm doing without chatting over the actual bits that you're supposed to watch and appreciate. So that's really interesting, because he's not... I don't think anybody's ever quite done that before. Never had anybody sort of fresh off the boat. It's a great episode, isn't it? Great cliffhanger. Lots to talk about, as you can tell. So, that was episode 1 of The Time Warrior. Join me for the next one. I'm going to carry straight on. I'm going to make this birthday last as long as possible. But I don't want this to end on a damp squib, so I'm gonna stick my tongue out and expect you to admire my facial hair, which has actually gone a little bit out of control because it's been Christmas, and I've simply let myself go, and now I'm going to let you go. Until next time, thank you for listening. Ta-ta.
I think you'll find. I think you'll find. I think you'll find.
I think you'll find.
The cover is, of course, by Jeff Cummins. I knew the cover was by Jeff Cummins, but when you say things out loud, suddenly your brain goes, "Did you mean that?" Yes, I did mean it. Shut up, brain. And it's a brilliant cover, one of the best. Go and look at it now. Thank you so much for listening to Happy Times and Places, which is presented by me, Toby Hadoke. My special guest is Tom Salinsky, who can be found on Twitter at Tom Salinsky, spelt as it's pronounced. I'd like to thank those who have come to my Patreon page for the greater glory of the Sontaran Empire, and they include Gary Wales, Adam Westwood, Rich Wiggins, Michael Williams, Stephen White, Mark Aldridge, Kit Allen, Sebastian April, Tilt Oriza, Simon Ash, Richard Alt, Martin Bellum, James Blackett, Robin Bland, Kyle Bors, David Brody, Hugh Buchtman, Anthony Carroll the Dandy, Anthony Carroll the Clown. There are two of them. There might be a third in a lockup somewhere. Phil Chapman, Susan Christian, Steve Churchill, Charles Coffin, and Paul Colnaghy. The music for this podcast is by Dave Gates, and the artwork by Dylan Patterson. Or is it Roy Knipe? No, it's Dylan Patterson! If you would like to claim my Patreon page and all its moons and satellites for your greater glory, go to patreon.com/Toby Hadoke. You can pay as little as £3 a month. You do get charged immediately. And there's a 10% discount for an annual subscription, by the way. And as soon as you sign up, you get access to all sorts of exclusive and advanced material. Higher tiers qualify for a badge and other little goodies as well, but it's pretty egalitarian. It's a pretty much a pay whatever you like and get pretty much everything. And that's, as I say, patreon.com/Toby Hadoke. Now, many of you won't be able to do that or won't fancy that, and that's fine. Ko-fi.com/Toby Hadoke is a one-off donation method if you'd like to do that. But frankly, the money is less important than the fact that you all listen, which is really, really gratefully appreciated. But if you want to do something that's free and takes very little effort, please rate and leave lovely reviews for these podcasts everywhere that you get them from, at any podcast facility that you possibly can, because that just makes my algorithms all the sexier, and I really aspire to have sexy algorithms. You can also follow my YouTube channel, Toby Hadoke. You can follow me on Twitter at Toby Hadoke. And these podcasts, Toby Hadoke's Time Travels, have their own Twitter feed, which is at Hadoke Podcasts. Hadoke, by the way, is inexplicably spelt Hadoke. And you can go to my website at tobyhadoke.com. And I also do a comedy night every Tuesday night online during the pandemic. So if that's still happening when you listen to this, go to twitch.tv/Excess Malarkey. My comedy club, Excess Malarkey, has been running every Tuesday night in Manchester at 8 p.m. for the past 24 years. During the pandemic, it's gone online there at Twitch TV. And once the pandemic is over, it will be back live. So have a look for it online.